So today I'd like to talk about why the contract matters. So the contract is basically the document that is going to uh, be the roadmap for the transaction. It is the most important document in the transaction because it's going to tell each party what they're responsible for and what they have to complete before closing. So once the transaction coordinator receives this contract, they are supposed to go page by page and make sure that every initial is in that contract and every signature required is there, including the effective date of the contract. Um, I just want to point out that the contract not only has to be completed and being correct, but also has to be effective. And how does the contract become effective? The contract becomes effective when not only is signed, but also is communicated to all parties. So in other words, it has to be sent to all interested parties once it is signed. It has to be communicated to them. And again, the TC shop is going to go over the contract to make sure everything is correct, all the signatures are correct, and any addendums that are supposed to be included in the contract have been included in the contract and nothing is missing. So what is in the purchase contract? So in the purchase contract, there is a lot of different contingencies um, and information that is going to be needed by the title company, the lender, and all this information has to be in the contract very clear. The purchase price, any escrow deposits, typically there could be one or two depending on the terms of the contract. Also, is going to have the buyer and seller information in the contract. The contract is going to stipulate if there's a financing contingency or if the buyers are paying cash for the property. Also, if they have a financing contingency, do they also have an appraisal contingency as well? Also, inspection um, typically so many days for the buyer to inspect the property, and typically the buyer will get, let's say, 10 days for the inspection. In this case, the buyer has up to that uh, amount of days to inspect the property, and if the buyer decides, you know what, the property is not for me within that period of time, typically the buyer is able to cancel the contract and get his deposit back. Also, we have other contingencies that are part of the contract, and that is the job of the transaction coordinator to go over this contract, identify each contingency, each deadline that has to be met for the seller and the buyer. So basically, you are the manager of the transaction. So once you have this contingency schedule, you are going to put it together with the due dates. And then once you gather all that information, you're going to send an email out to all interested parties with a copy of the executed contract that has been signed by the buyer and the seller. And you're going to send this schedule to them. Once you send that out, you're going to say, hello, everyone. Attached, please find a copy of the executed contract and also attached find a contingency schedule. Please confirm if you're okay with the contingency schedule. Otherwise, kindly advise so we can be on the same page. Something like that to make sure that everyone is okay with the effective date and also anyone can make a mistake on the date. So you're telling them, hey, it's not on me, it's also on you to verify the contingency schedule, the key date document. They also call it the key date document. Is your responsibility also to double check each deadline to make sure that we're on the same page. So that once you send that out, the work begins. So let's talk about the contracts that we use when buying and selling real estate. So in Florida, we use the Access Farmer contract, and the Access is probably the most used forms or contract forms when it comes to buying and purchasing real estate, at least in Florida. And the assist basically is saying that the seller is selling the property as is. The seller is not giving credit for repairs to the buyer. Another contract is the standard FAR/BAR contract, and the FAR/BAR contract is a bit more beneficial to the buyer because it allows the buyer to request credit from the seller for property repairs. Now, the non-residential contract, the RESP, is a contract that not designed, which is not state specific, is at the national level, and typically is not really used. I have never seen a transaction. I mean, it could be used, but I have never seen a transaction, at least in Florida, that have used a RESP contract. Again, the most used contract will be the access contract. And then you have the local association forms. And in this case, the local association forms are provided by your local realtor association. Also, we have new construction versus resale contracts. New construction refers to development or developer contracts. In this case, you have a developer, it has a new project and is selling their project to prospective buyers, and they're going to have their own sales contract. And typically, these developer sales contract are one-sided. It benefits a lot. The developer is going to have less contingencies per se versus a resale contract. And again, this varies by state. So my recommendation is to check with your state requirements when it comes to purchase contracts. Thank you.